Welcome to part 2 of the richest black rappers who live like they're poor. And trust me, their spending habits are absolutely wild. We're talking about a guy worth up to 80 million who still drives a 30-year-old car, a rapper who quit jewelry cold turkey and only got richer, and a legend who bought back his lost childhood home and gave it to single moms for free. Let's get into it. Number 8. Ludacris. Let's kick off part 2 with a man you know from blockbuster movies and platinum records, who is worth somewhere between $25 and $80 million. Ludacris has a stake in one of the biggest film franchises in history. He owns airport restaurants, he produces TV and film, and he holds real estate in 3 major cities. So what is this multi-millionaire mogul's most prized possession? A 1993 Acura Legend. I'm serious. He bought it back in 1999, when he was still a broke, pre-fame DJ in Atlanta, and that car now has over 255,000 miles on it. And when it finally got damaged a few years back, the obvious move was to just let it go and buy something new. Instead, Luda did something genuinely telling. He sent it to Acura's own design studio for a full restoration. Brand new leather, updated audio, the works, but he kept that original 1993 body completely intact. That's not just nostalgia, that's a man deliberately preserving the version of himself that existed before the fame, before the franchise, before all the money and validation showed up. He's literally called that car his grounding mechanism, a physical thread back to a life that felt real before everything got complicated. While other rappers are leasing a new supercar every 6 months just to keep up appearances, Ludacris is rolling around in a 30-year-old Acura on purpose. And don't mistake that for him being broke or boring. This is a man who owns a restaurant inside an airport. Think about how smart that is for a second. A captive audience of hungry, bored travelers who are stuck there with nowhere else to go and money to burn. That's not flashy money. That's quiet, patient, ruthless business sense. Ludacris figured out the secret early. The car you drive doesn't make you rich. The assets you own do. Now, Luda holds onto a cheap car to stay grounded. Our next man did the exact opposite with his most expensive toy. He bought a private jet, looked at the actual numbers, and got rid of it without blinking. Number 7. Akon. Akon once bought himself a private jet, the ultimate symbol of having made it. He used it for about 6 months, then sat down and looked at the real numbers. $2 to $3 million a year just in fuel, storage, and maintenance before a single flight. So he sold it. No drama, no sentimentality. To him, that jet wasn't a status symbol, it was a liability wearing a really expensive costume, and he treated it exactly like the money pit it was. Now he just charters when he needs to. But the fashion thing is where Akon gets truly fascinating. He has openly admitted to wearing knockoff designer clothes. He once talked about rocking a Drio shirt, as in a fake Dior. And here's the kicker, it's not because he can't afford the real thing. It's a philosophy. He sees European luxury branding as a form of economic extraction, money flowing out of his community and into someone else's empire. And he'd rather put those dollars toward African vendors making similar goods. That's not being cheap. That's a man voting with his wallet. And when you see where all that saved money actually goes, your jaw hits the floor. Akon Lighting Africa has delivered solar power to over 14 countries, bringing electricity to communities that had never had it before. He's working on Akon City, a proposed $6 billion smart city in Senegal. He even owns diamond mines. Let that sink in. This man is wearing a knockoff Dior shirt while quietly trying to build an entire city from scratch. So while everyone else is performing wealth for an Instagram audience, Akon restructured his whole financial life around one idea: every dollar he doesn't waste. Looking rich is a dollar building something that outlives him by generations. The fake shirt isn't a sign he's struggling, it's a sign he's playing a game on a completely different board than everyone else. Akon is playing this massive, loud continental game. Our next legend went the complete opposite direction. He walked away from all the noise, and these days you'll usually find him alone at a public laundromat, by choice. Number 6. Andre 3000. If you'd told someone in 2003 that one half of Outkast, the most celebrated rap duo of an entire era, would one day spend his mornings doing his own laundry at a public laundromat, they'd have assumed something went horribly wrong. The truth is the complete opposite. Andre 3000 is worth somewhere between $35 and $45 million, And the simple life he's built out in Venice Beach looks less like a downfall and a whole lot more like peace. The man wakes up before sunrise for a 5-mile walk to the pier and back. No security, no entourage, just him, moving through the world like a regular person. He's actually described the laundromat as Zen, a quiet place to slow down and exist in the same ordinary space as everybody else. He gets spotted sketching on the beach and playing the flute for total strangers. And honestly, it makes you wonder if he ever even wanted the fame, or if he just tolerated it as the price of making the music. Speaking of waking before sunrise and putting your health above everything else, that's what pulled someone on our team to the Pulse R8 smart ring. It tracks your heart rate, your sleep, and your workouts straight from your finger. A week on a single charge, 100 days with the case, and it's fully waterproof. The part that got us was the price, under $40, a fraction of what the big-name rings cost, because it comes direct instead of through the retailers that mark everything up. If you're watching on your TV, pause and scan the QR code on screen with your phone camera, or tap the first link in the description. Now, back to a man worth $40 million who puts almost every dollar somewhere you'd never guess. And his spending tells the exact same story. The man has collected around 40 flutes from all over the world, each one in a different key, each carrying a different history. We're talking a cherry red Chinese flute, and even a Mayan death whistle, which is every bit as intense as it sounds. He credits one life-changing experience with finally clearing the creative block and social anxiety that had kept him quiet for years. And that's what eventually gave us his instrumental album, New Blue Sun. Think about that. This is a man who could spend his money on absolutely anything, and almost every dollar goes inward toward art, experience, and the tools to make sound. No mansions to show off, no fleet of cars, no debt, and no drama. At $40 million, just living in genuine peace. That might honestly be the quietest, most powerful flex on this entire list. Andre walked away from the spotlight to chase art and stillness. Our next man walked away from music almost entirely, for a reason nobody saw coming. He left to go quietly become a Silicon Valley millionaire. Number 5. Chamillionaire. You remember the song Ridin'? That massive, Grammy-winning, impossible-to-escape hit from a Houston rapper named Chamillionaire. Well, here's the part of the story that almost nobody talks about. While the rap world moved on, Chamillionaire quietly went and reinvented himself as one of the sharpest tech investors in the game, and he did it while most of his peers were busy spending everything they had. See, instead of blowing his music money on the usual rapper starter pack, Chamillionaire got obsessed with how Silicon Valley actually worked. He started studying startups, going to tech conferences, and putting his money into early-stage companies before they blew up. And his track record is genuinely stunning. By various accounts, he was an early investor in companies like the video doorbell giant Ring, before Amazon bought it, the self-driving company Cruise, and the rideshare app Lyft. He even spent time embedded at a major venture capital firm just to learn the craft from the inside. Read that again. The Ridin' Dirty guy was sitting in Silicon Valley boardrooms betting on the future, while the industry assumed he'd faded away. His net worth is now reportedly around $50 million, and a huge chunk of it has nothing to do with music royalties at all. And the whole time, he's stayed remarkably grounded, preaching financial literacy and ownership to younger artists who will listen, constantly warning them not to fall for the trap of looking rich instead of being rich. Chamillionaire didn't just survive the one-hit wonder curse that swallows so many rappers. He used the money from that one hit as seed capital to build something that will pay him for life. That's not luck. That's a man who understood that the real flex was equity, not jewelry. Now, Chamillionaire got rich investing in other people's companies. Our next man looked at the entire broken financial system, the one that locked his community out for generations, and decided to do something almost nobody in music has ever done. He built his own bank. Number 4. Killer Mike. Killer Mike is a 3-time Grammy winner, a legendary Atlanta rapper, and one half of the explosive duo Run the Jewels. But honestly, his music might not even be the most important thing he's ever made, because Killer Mike didn't just rap about Black economic power and financial independence. He went out and physically built the tools to make it real. Most famously, he co-founded a digital banking platform called Greenwood, named directly after the original Black Wall Street in Tulsa. Think about the weight of that name for a second. He helped create an actual bank, designed specifically to serve Black and brown communities that the traditional banking system has shut out and overlooked for 100 years. He saw money flowing out of his community and into institutions that never gave back, and his answer wasn't a song. It was an entire financial institution. And this isn't a one-off stunt. Killer Mike has been preaching the Bank Black message for years, urging people to move their money into Black-owned banks to keep that capital circulating inside the community instead of leaking right back out. He also owns a chain of barbershops in Atlanta, real, tangible, local businesses that employ people and build neighborhood wealth from the ground up. For a man with his level of fame and success, his lifestyle stays refreshingly grounded. You won't catch Killer Mike drowning in flashy chains or chasing the most expensive car on the lot. His energy, and crucially his money, go into ownership, into building, into the kind of structural change that actually lasts. He genuinely lives the philosophy he preaches, that true wealth isn't about what's hanging around your neck. It's about what your community gets to own. Killer Mike turned his platform into a movement, and his money into a foundation other people can build on. And speaking of teaching people the money game that the schools never bothered to, our next rapper made a very public, very expensive change to his lifestyle, and he got noticeably richer the very second he made it. Number 3. 21 Savage. Back in 2018, 21 Savage made an announcement that shook the culture. He was done buying jewelry. And for a man who had built a big chunk of his early image around dripping in six-figure diamond chains, that was a genuine cultural moment. But here's the part that actually matters. He's been brutally open about the financial result. Ever since he stopped, his net worth has grown noticeably faster. Why? Because all that money that used to walk out the door as depreciating jewelry now just stays in the account, working for him. But the man didn't suddenly become a monk. He just spends differently. The perfect example? He reportedly dropped $100,000 on a custom gaming bed, a high-tech sleep system designed around spinal support and long-term physical health. And on the surface, that sounds insane, but here's his logic, and it's sharp. There's a difference between visible status and invisible luxury. Nobody ever sees that bed. It's not for show. It just quietly makes his life better. That's the entire philosophy in one purchase. And then there's the smartest move of all. 21 Savage owns his master recordings, which is still shockingly rare in this industry. Owning your masters means you collect way more money every single time your music gets streamed or licensed. Over a full career, that gap is the difference between being comfortable and building wealth that lasts for generations. But the thing that really flips the script on his hard, mysterious public image is his financial literacy work. Through a campaign with a nonprofit, 21 Savage has personally gone into schools to teach kids about banking, credit scores, and taxes. All the stuff he flat out admits nobody taught him growing up. The guy whose whole brand is being hard to read is quietly out here teaching teenagers how credit works. That, more than any song, might be the most valuable thing he ever leaves behind. 21 Savage evolved right out in the open and let the compound interest do the talking. But the top two on this list were playing this game from day one, before anybody was even paying attention. Starting with a man who, at the absolute peak of his fame, went out and bought the most boring house he could possibly find. Number 2. Kendrick Lamar. In 2013, the year after the album that made him one of the most talked about artists on the planet, Kendrick Lamar bought a house. Now, that year, he reportedly earned around $9 million. So how much did he spend on his own home? $523,000. A modest 3,500 square foot house in a quiet suburb called Eastvale, about an hour outside of Los Angeles. Just sit with that ratio for a second, because that gap right there is the entire story. Eastvale is not a celebrity neighborhood. Nobody goes paparazzi hunting in Eastvale. And that was almost certainly the whole point. By choosing a $500,000 house over a $10 million Calabasas mansion during the most unpredictable years of his career, Kendrick kept his spending so low that the money he made had nowhere to go but straight into a growing reserve. He was quietly building a war chest while everyone else was building an image. And then, when the time was right, that reserve hit like a hammer. By 2024, His real estate portfolio included a $42 million compound in Brentwood and an $8.5 million penthouse in Brooklyn. But here's the difference. He could buy those outright and keep them, instead of stretching for them during a hot streak and quietly selling them off when the income got shaky. His company, PG Lang, basically runs like his own personal venture fund, financing his videos and tours without ever handing control to a label or studio. And that level of total independence was only possible because he refused to burn his early money on a lifestyle he hadn't fully paid for yet. And through all of it, the man stayed almost stubbornly private. No flexing online, rarely photographed, no performance of wealth whatsoever. By every outside measure, Kendrick Lamar looks like a thoughtful, comfortable guy of pretty average means, which at a $200 million net worth is either the most insane financial discipline on this entire list, or just flat-out proof that needing the world to see your money is, in the end, a choice. Kendrick played the long game with almost no tells at all. But our number one might just be the most carefully constructed money story in the entire history of hip-hop. From a man who was literally still riding the subway while his albums were going platinum. Number 1. J. Cole. Here's the thing about J. Cole that gets lost in all the conversations about his music. Before he was ever a rapper, he was a business administration student who graduated magna cum laude from St. John's University. And while he was grinding to break into the music industry in New York, he was also working regular jobs in collections and ad sales, getting a hands-on, ground-level education in exactly how money moves, how debt traps people, and why so many folks end up on the wrong side of it. That foundation never left him. So even at his absolute commercial peak, his lifestyle stayed almost comically low-key. Plain hoodies. No visible jewelry. Zero interest in the wealth flexing that defines so much of his industry. Fans have caught him just riding the subway and pedaling around New York on a bicycle, not as some staged PR moment, but because that is genuinely how the man moves through the world. His whole love yours philosophy, the idea that chasing status symbols is a distraction from what actually matters, isn't just a lyric, it's literally how he lives. And keeping his personal overhead that ridiculously low for over a decade is exactly what let him do something almost no artist ever gets to do. In 2023, J. Cole joined an ownership group that bought the Charlotte Hornets from Michael Jordan, making him a part owner of an NBA franchise. That's not a chain you post on Instagram. That's a 15-year financial strategy quietly arriving at its destination, while everyone else was still arguing about who had the better watch. But the detail that truly stays with you isn't the Hornets. Back in 2014, J. Cole bought his childhood home in Fayetteville, North Carolina, the very same house that had been repossessed from his mother when he was a kid. The loss that shaped so much of who he became. And he didn't keep it as a trophy. He turned it into the Dreamville house, a rent-free home for single mothers and their children, giving them the exact stability he and his mom never had. The thing that was taken from him, he turned into a refuge for families living through what he once lived through. That's not a money strategy. That's a whole worldview, and it just happens to have a very rich man behind it. So that's part 2, with 8 more rappers sitting on massive fortunes while living like the money barely changed them. Which one surprised you the most? Was it Shamillionaire secretly becoming a tech investor, Akon in his knockoff Dior, or J. Cole giving away his childhood home? Drop it in the comments, smash that like button, and stay locked into Black Status, because this is where the real game is always played off the mic. Catch you in the next one.